Just before the opening of training camp, the Columbus Blue Jackets pull off a trade for a backup goalie. Jay Forster of Locked On Blue Jackets is here to tell us what it means and what to expect from the Blue Jackets this year, next on today's Locked On NHL podcast.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Gil Martin here. Welcome, everybody, to the Monday edition of the Locked On NHL podcast. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On NHL your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. It is my pleasure to welcome back to the show the host of Locked On Blue Jackets, Jay Forster. And Jay, big trade over the weekend for the Blue Jackets. Kind of surprised me a little bit. Ivan Fedotov coming over to Columbus. Talk to me about your initial reaction to this deal.
I also was pretty surprised by this trade. I literally just finished recording something else, flipped over to social media, and they were like, hey, Columbus is getting a goalie. I was like, I guess so. This is... I wouldn't call it a big trade necessarily. It's not going to move the needle. It's not going to, change a lot of things, I don't think. But what it does do is give the Blue Jackets a little bit more depth further down the lineup. Fedotov is not going to challenge for one of the NHL spots. He's going to be the third goalie. He is going to have to go through waivers to get to the AHL. But my guess is, and I think Don Waddell's guess is, no one's going to want to take on that $3.2 million cap hit if they try, they'll sneak him through waivers. He'll play in the AHL. He'll be fine. This is an extremely reasonable depth move that they got him for a 6th round pick. This is extremely low risk, and there is potential for, I wouldn't say high reward, but definitely kind of medium-ish reward if Fedotov succeeds in the AHL.
So Fedotov starts the season in the AHL. Where do you see him down the line? Is there a chance he eventually steps up if they trade Elvis or if they make some kind of a move, in goal? What does that mean?
I mean, maybe. And this goaltending makes no sense. Sometimes, goaltending is nonsense. There's no way to sit here and predict that, it's going to be Elvis and Jet by the end of the season. Elvis's contract is potentially untradeable, but with the cap explosion, and all it really takes is one team to really need a goalie and Elvis to have a not terrible year, that suddenly Elvis's contract doesn't look quite as bad as it looked a couple of years ago. He's going to be a UFA at the end of, I believe, not next offseason, but the offseason after that. So I believe his contract is up in 2027. So if you can swallow that cap hit for, the next season and a half or whatever, there's a world where he does get traded. Potentially Fedotov comes up, but I don't see him getting significant NHL time this season. And he's a UFA at the end of the year as well. So worst case scenario is that he doesn't pan out in Columbus. They let him walk at the end of the year. There's an option where, I'm going to knock on wood here because curses. A goalie gets injured. Elvis misses a lot of time because of injury, because of illness. Elvis struggles a lot with fatigue, which is probably because the team overplays him. But we'll see if that gets fixed this season. So there's room for Fedotov to get some NHL starts, but I don't think he's going to be a significant extended NHL presence unless something goes wrong with one of the two goalies that they have currently.
Was an interesting offseason, not the biggest headline-making offseason. Talk to me about the moves and your feelings about them.
I mean, here's the thing. Would I have liked Don Waddell to go out and get Mitch Marner and pay him $1 bajillion until the end of time? Sure. Would I have liked him to go out and get someone like a Nick Ehlers, or, try to get a Václav Gavrikov or an Aaron Ekblad or, someone like that to add to this roster? Sure. But the thing about the Blue Jackets is they are very clearly betting on their homegrown guys and their guys that are already here, right? they're betting on Adam Fantilli getting better. They're betting on Marchenko being one of the best wings in the league, and he was top 15 in scoring for wingers last season. You know, he had 31 goals. Adam Fantilli might score 40 goals this season. They're looking at Kent Johnson to improve. They're looking at Zach Werenski to continue being good, right? So I can understand the organization betting on themselves and not bringing in an outside piece. That doesn't make it not disappointing from a fan's point of view when, you know, you're looking at, well, we've been told that, you know, we want an impact top 6 winger and we want a new defense. We're going to retool the defense. We're going to get a new goalie. And then it turns out that actually the biggest acquisition is, you know, Charlie Coyle, who, you know, they arguably overpaid for. I like Charlie Coyle. I do think that trade was extremely lopsided and not in the Blue Jackets' favor. But I think sometimes the best move is the one that you don't make, right? I think, and you know, I wasn't going to call any specific contract out, you know, but I think, you know, the Provorov contract is bad. There's no doubt about that. But I think someone like, you know, I think the Sam Bennett contract is probably going to age pretty poorly, you know? So again, sometimes the best move is the one that you don't make. Arguably, they shouldn't have made the Provorov move. Arguably, Florida shouldn't have made the Bennett move, right? So I would rather them be a little bit more conservative with their movement, especially when you consider how much money they're going to have to hand out to guys like Fantilli, Johnson, Marchenko in, you know, as soon as next off season. That I'm actually kind of okay with them not handing out $1 bajillion to someone this summer to try and speed up the rebuild, because that's what got it off the rails last time, is they tried to speed it up and it went horribly wrong.
Talk to me about Coyle. I've always been a Charlie Coyle fan, one of those guys who quietly does his job and does it well.
Yeah, he's not going to move the needle, right? He's not going to come in and be a game-changing player. But I think what you're going to get with Coyle is that you're going to get someone that can play pretty comfortably in the middle 6. There is a void at the minute on that second line of, I don't know who's going to play on Adam Fantilli's other wing with Kent Johnson. I don't think it'll be Coyle, but there is the opportunity for that, right? He plays center. He plays it well. Decent face-off guy. Decent penalty kill guy. Like, again, like you said, he just kind of quietly goes about and does his job well. And I think there's something to be said for just kind of quiet competence, right? In this league, like I said, not fancy, but you need guys like Coyle to win, and he's got I think he might now have the most. He might be the most playoff. Like, he might have the most playoff games of anyone on the Blue Jackets roster, if I'm not forgetting someone vital, which I might be. But my guess is that Coyle probably has the most playoff games of anyone on the Blue Jackets roster right now.
Talk to me about some of those homegrown prospects who the team is looking at, who may be able to contribute something this year. I mean,
if for prospects, we'll take guys like Fantilli out of the equation. He's 2 years into his NHL career now, which feels insane to say. But you know, there's guys like Luca Del Balbaluz, who was called up when Sean Monahan was injured last year, and I think had 8 points in 11 NHL games as a 20-year-old, former second-round pick. Just has that energy of wants to make it, so is going to make it. Wouldn't be surprised to see him contributing to the NHL this season. Another Luca Pinelli, far and away the best Blue Jackets player at the prospect tournament that's happening. Will be done by the time everyone listens to this, but we're recording this just before the third of 3 games, and he's got 5 or 6 points in his first 2 games, right? Again, just a guy that shouldn't really amount to anything based on where he was drafted, and you know, he's 5'9" and was drafted in the 4th round. Like, it makes no sense that he would make it as an NHL player, but he's decided that he's going to make it, and he succeeds at every level that he reaches. So he's a really exciting one as well. Guys that are not at the prospect tournament that just happened, you've got guys like Jackson Smith, who just started his season in the NCAA. You've got Caden Lindstrom, who is finally healthy after basically an entire year of missing time due to back surgery. If all of these guys click and all of these guys hit, in 2 to 3 years, Columbus is going to be an extremely young and extremely scary team, which is a lot of fun. If they all hit. The big if, you know?
But something to look forward to for Blue Jackets fans, no doubt.
Yes,
Jay, why don't you tell our viewers and our listeners where they could find the podcast and where they could find you on social media?
So you can find the podcast wherever you listen to Locked On NHL. We are on YouTube. We're on basically every podcasting app you can think of. You can find me on Blue Sky at JAKOBFORSTER. You can find the show, the podcast, on Twitter still at LO_Blue Jacket. And I don't post from it often enough, but you can also find LO-Blue Jacket over on Blue Sky as well.
All right, Jay, thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
Today's episode is brought to you by your friends at FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your first bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. That's $300 in bonus bets to use across the app if your first $5 bet wins. I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet. You like player props, maybe putting together a same-game parlay to win even bigger, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. FanDuel has it all for you. So, are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to get started, and if your first $5 bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets. FanDuel.com, check it out today.